I would like to call the City Council meeting of October the 7th, 2014 to order. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Schotmeyer.
Here.
Adams. Here. Long.
Here.
Gray. Here. Marsh.
Here.
Kenyon.
Here.
Petty.
Here.
Tennant.
Here.
Mayor Jordan.
Here. Would you join me in signing the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first thing that we have tonight is the bi-monthly report on public transportation. Who has that? Nobody has that. Okay, well, I guess we'll move on to consent agenda then. That was fast. All right, on the consent agenda, we have number one, approval of the August 19th through the 20th, 2014, and September the 2nd, 2014 City Council meeting minutes. Number two, Page Mulholland Waterfowl Blind. Resolution to honor Page Mulholland by naming the waterfowl blind to be constructed at Lake Fayetteville Park, the Page Mulholland Waterfowl Blind. Number three, bid number 14-31, Cummins Mid-South. A resolution to award bid number 14-31 and to authorize a generator preventive maintenance contract with Cummins Mid-South in the amount of $15,040 per year plus non-scheduled service calls at the rate of $115.20 per hour. Number four, 2014-2015 Selective Traffic Enforcement Program Grant. A resolution authorized acceptance of a 2014-2015 Selective Traffic Enforcement Program Grant Award in the amount of $116,900 and to approve a budget adjustment. Number five, Arkansas State Police Special Rate Asset Forfeiture Grant. A resolution authorizing acceptance of non-matching Arkansas State Police Special State Asset Forfeiture Grant in the amount of $36,069 for the purchase of covert cellular wire and 2 undercover drug enforcement vehicles and to approve a budget adjustment. Number six, bid number 14-52, TECO Safety Incorporated. A resolution to award bid number 14-52 to TECO Safety Incorporated to authorize the immediate purchase of 12 replacement tactical body armor vests for emergency response team officers in the amount of $23,580 plus applicable taxes, to authorize the purchase of body armor vests as needed through 2019 for use by the police department. Number seven, bid number 14-53, Cameron Bridge Works LLC, a resolution to award bid number 14-53 and to authorize the purchase of a prefabricated steel bridge from Cameron Bridge Works LLC of Elmira, New York, in the amount of $53,991 plus applicable taxes for installation over Town Branch Creek as part of the Frisco Trail Extension. Number eight, McClellan Consulting Engineers Incorporated. A resolution to approve a professional engineering services agreement with McClellan Consulting Engineers Incorporated for engineering design and bidding services for the Ramsey and Overcrest Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project in an amount not to exceed $228,644 and to approve a budget adjustment. Number nine, Grubbs, Hoskins, Barton, and White Incorporated. A resolution authorizing a contract with Grubbs, Hoskins, Barton, and White Incorporated for materials testing and construction observation services on the Spring Street parking deck project in the amount of not to exceed $120,000. Number 10, Garver LLC Amendment Number 3. A resolution to approve Amendment Number 3 to the contract with Garver LLC for construction administration services on the Spring Street parking deck project in the amount not to exceed $168,600. I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as read. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Schotmeyer.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Okay, under unfinished business, we have none. Under new business, number one, special referendum election ordinance number 5703, a resolution to set the date for the special election for the referendum election on ordinance number 5703, which enacted Chapter 119 of the Fayetteville Code to create a process for the protection of civil rights in the city of Fayetteville and requesting the Washington County Board of Election Commissioners to place this referendum on the ballot and to approve a budget adjustment to pay for the special election.
Mr. Mayor, I have actually a couple amendments that need to go on that, and I've got them combined. One of them is that I am concerned that there might possibly be litigation in this matter, and so I needed to add in Section 1 that if the litigation delays the printing of ballots or otherwise necessitates any delay, the Washington County Election Commission may move the special election date to January 13, 2015. It will be set for December the 9th if there's no problems, but I wanted to have that in there so there would be no issue about whether or not we'd have to go back and reset the date. That was one thing about it. The second part is that I have changed the exhibit to some extent by adding the entire Exhibit A, Chapter 119, Civil Rights Administration, to the exhibit. This is a lot of language, and I'm going to pass this out in just a second, but we have the entire ballot. This is a special election. It's a big ballot. I think we can get all the language on there. The previous special elections that we had, like on the smoking ordinance, it was much shorter, but we did include all the language there. I think we ought to do it here. So let me pass this down so that if you can take one and do that, and there would need to be a motion to amend to that resolution, and then I have something else after you have done that.
I'll make that motion, and including the amendment with giving the Election Commission the ability to change the date with respect to litigation.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. What discussion do we have on the amendment among the council? Anything?
It's hard to discuss since we
I
just
know.
got the information.
I understand. I totally understand that.
And then I will have also, I've been in contact with the petitioner's attorney. His concern was that the language at the very, that could have gone where the ballot title language might go. He wished to have that language as the ballot title. My opinion is that that's probably not legal. I don't think it follows our rules, but I did tell him, and I have here a resolution, which I'm not asking you to amend it right now, but I'd like you to pass this down. And this would be a resolution from City Council that would, in fact, enact or pass the resolution and have the ballot title as requested by the proponents of the petition, and that ballot title would read repeal in its entirety ordinance number 5703, which enacted Chapter 119 of the Fayetteville, Arkansas City Code. And the other change would be at the end of that, instead of saying for the amended ordinance or against the, for the referred ordinance or against the referred ordinance, would say for repeal of ordinance number 5703 or against repeal of ordinance number 5703. Those are the two changes that that they wanted on this, and so I did put that in there because that would be an option for the City Council. It's not one that I can recommend, but it would be one that the City Council could pass. And their attorney is here, and he can speak to that at a later date at your choice. I also have, and I'm sorry that I got this to you so late, is a further memo about the ballot language. One of the key parts of this memo I'd like to maybe read to you, and it is about the ballot title. The Supreme Court has said that we have explained that the purpose of the ballot title is to allow a voter to reach an intelligent and informed decision for or against a proposal and to understand the consequences of his or her vote. That's a 2012 Supreme Court case. And as you heard when I read the ballot title proposed by the applicants, it only described the ordinance by number, not by name or anything, and that's why I felt like I could not support that. But let me give this down to you. I'm sorry you don't have time to read it but I want to give it to you anyway for your review at some point in time.
Do you have copies of my right for me?
Yeah, I already got those two, do you? Right here.
Well, that's good.
A lot of paper.
right now. Is there more copies?
I've got some more. How many do we need?
3.
Three.
Pass it off there.
Thank you.
The mayor needs one.
You want one too, Mayor?
Well, okay. Now, how...
Basically, I haven't changed my position that I stated at the agenda session and gave you my memo on why I felt like we had to include the actual language of the ordinance, the title of the ordinance, rather than any other kind of ballot language.
Okay, now let me get all these straight. We've got how many amendments here, Kit? 2?
Well, we have one possible amendment that's on the floor now that would be amending the original resolution to the one I described, which included the extra date for the Election Commission, a couple other changes just in the ordinance to make it work with the new exhibit, and the exhibit would now have both the ordinance and the exhibit as which is the Chapter 119 Civil Rights Administration Code chapter. So I'd have both of those in it so that the ballot would have the entire language which was passed by the City Council for the voters to be able to look at before they voted.
Okay. All right. What discussion do we have?
Okay, just to be sure, what we're talking about now is the amendment, the current resolution as it has been published and sent through the agenda session with the amendment of adding the complete language of the resolution.
And allowing the Election Commission to extend the date if necessary, because
Okay, so we
there
have
might
all
be
that
litigation.
information. Okay. Just wanted to be sure that's what I was talking about whenever like I say, getting this at the last minute.
Possible extra extension date and the complete ordinance with the exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all in one amendment, right?
Right.
Yes, it's just that what I presented to you, what they're right here in your hand.
I think I've got all that now. What? Yes, Matthew.
I guess first I'd like to thank the city attorney for doing a thorough job trying to research this. It's clear that there may be some further action, but I think that we've got what we need to be able to make a sound decision based on the knowledge available to us. And I guess for me, I go back to this Supreme Court decision that our attorney read, that the purpose of the ballot title is to allow the voter to reach an intelligent and informed decision and to understand the consequences of the vote. And I think that our attorney's recommendation is the one that does that the best.
Okay. What other comments do we have on that? Yes, sir.
Again, I want to thank the city attorney. I think it's really beneficial to include the entire language of our ordinance in there. I know there's been a lot of confusion about what our ordinance actually does and doesn't do, and I think it's very beneficial for the voter to be able to read it in its entirety and make an informed decision based on that. So, thank you.
Anybody else? Want to hear some public comment? Okay. Let's take some public comment. Everybody, let's stay with the amendment, okay?
And I think Travis
Sorry.
is here to
Mr.
explain the
Story.
legal issues involved in
Yes.
this. He is, Travis Story has been representing the petitioners, and we've discussed various things, and he has some points I think he'd like to make.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, council members. Today, the petitioner in this case, as representative for the Ballot Question Committee, Repeal 119, and on behalf of the more than 4,095 registered voters of Fayetteville who signed the petition, we're asking you to do two simple things. One, I concur that the date should be set, and to set that date for December 9th. And second is not to include any petition language, any ballot language in the resolution passed and forwarded on to the election commission. And here's my reason behind that. The petition itself signed each of the 802 petition parts signed by the citizens of Fayetteville, the registered voters of Fayetteville, all included basically the ballot language, which Mr. Williams has previously read, and that is the ballot title. According to Amendment 7, the petition turned in to Ms. Smith on the 20th. The petition we, as Repeal 119, handed in on behalf of all the voters of Fayetteville has this title, which is the only thing I believe that needs to be on the ballot for it to be valid. And I don't think changing that, with all due respect, is this body's prerogative or right. The language cited in Mr. Williams' previous memo would have been applicable had Amendment 3, which was Councilman Tennett's amendment, passed the night of the passage of the ordinance, which was if the council referred this matter to the residents of the city of Fayetteville. I believe at that point, then it would have been appropriate and required under the statute for this council to create the ballot title and the ballot language. At this point, the citizens of Fayetteville have had to go through the extraordinary act of doing the referendum petition in what they've previously reserved under the Constitution of Arkansas to do, and I believe they've done that and done that successfully. When they do that, we are able to have those signatures certified, which the clerk did on September 26th. Once she certified that, we believe that the date is all that needs to be set. We also believe that the date is called for in the petition to be December 9th, 2014. Anything other than that, if the budget part needs to be approved or done, we think that would be obviously appropriate for the council. But anything else that would be added, subtracted from the petition language, we don't believe is found in as a jurisdictional matter in this council at that point. We simply feel that the language that's on the petition should be what's included in the ballot. This afternoon, late this afternoon, in fact, I filed the petition with the Washington County to have that certified to the election, and I believe that in conjunction with this body coming in and certifying that December 9th, 2014 would be the date, would be the appropriate manner for this council to proceed forward. So I would ask that this council would effectively do neither of the recommendations by the city attorney, which is to add or subtract either one of the languages, unless it's simply the language that he proposed, which comes directly from the ballot, and that would be repeal in its entirety, Ordinance 5307, which enacted Chapter 119 of the Fayetteville, Arkansas City Code. The ballot form would be for repeal of Ordinance 5703 or against repeal of Ordinance 5703. And that, we believe, it would be the proper ballot under Amendment 7 to the Arkansas Constitution, which requires that the petition language as brought to Ms. Smith when it was certified would be the only language and the proper language to be on the ballot. Any other language starts to run afoul of other Arkansas Supreme Court rulings, which says any change between the petition which was signed by the more than 4,095 registered voters of Fayetteville, any change to that becomes almost an automatic dismissal of whatever ends up on the ballot, because that's simply not what the residents of Fayetteville signed. And so we have the unique opportunity to, and the unique issue of, the citizens of Fayetteville have specifically told this council, and with all due respect, they've told y'all what they would like, and that's to put this on the ballot to have repealed. And that's been done. That part has been included in every single petition part that was submitted, all 802 of them. And we believe that because of that, this council would be directly going against the registered voters of the city of Fayetteville at this point if they were to change that ballot title at all. And so we're simply asking that this council either adopts that simple ballot title, as I read it earlier, and I have copies of that if anybody would like copies of that, but to adopt that, or simply to not certify the ballot, not put in the resolution any particular ballot language, just simply resolve to have the election on December 9th. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, but that would be our request.
So, the question, I want to just be sure I've got this correct. So what you're saying, since the council decided not to put it on the general election in November, if they had voted to do that, they could have changed and put on the ballot what they wanted to put on it. But you're saying since they did not, the voters basically took it into their own hands and created their own wording, so you believe it would be against state, or be against the law, state law, I suppose, to change any of the wording of what was signed by the voters, correct?
Exactly, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just a minute. Kit, you're saying you believe that they can?
Well, I think we actually must if they want to have a valid election. I think that you cannot ignore the Supreme Court's ruling that a ballot title has a very important part in this, and that's to inform the voters. And if you only refer to numbers and not even the name of the ordinance, then how can somebody walking into that ballot place and looking at the ballot understand what they're voting for, unless most of us don't know what Ordinance 5703 means, or Chapter 119. The ordinary citizen might have an understanding if you talk about civil rights administration or other things like that, but the proposed ballot title here only talks in numbers, not even a name. Now, I think what can happen here, we talked very briefly before the meeting, Travis and I did, and what can possibly happen here, and maybe what's the best thing to happen here, is he's already filed his petitions with the county clerk, I guess. And if we then forward our resolution with our proposed ballot title, including the guts of the ordinance too, just like we did in the smoking ordinance.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was brought by the people,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
yet we referred it after the petitions came in. Then we went through this very process and sent the referendum petitions, setting a date for the election and what the petition ballot should say. So I think we should do that, and then if the county clerk or the election commission thinks that we've overstepped our bounds or we didn't have the power to do that and that the petitioner is correct, then certainly the county can make that decision. And they have a county attorney there to look at that, and I think that that might be the way to resolve this, is not to have put ourselves up as judges or anything, but instead just do what we've done in the past, which I believe is correct. Travis believes it's not correct and that there's another way to go, and maybe he's correct. I don't know. This is what we both will agree on is election law, especially on municipal referendums, is really vague. There are no cases that I could find where the Supreme Court's ever made any interpretations on municipal referendums. They make all their decisions on state actions and state issues, which are much better described by the statute. So maybe we could bring a little light into these referendum elections for municipal ordinances. Certainly something needs to be done. I would also ask the legislature maybe to take another look at this and provide us some guidance like they did to counties. Counties have a very clear system about what their petitions and what their ballots are supposed to look like. And I wish we had that same stuff. And Travis, I'll let you say whatever you want to in relation to that, but I think at this point, probably the people that should decide this is one step above us, which is the county.
The last two things that I'll just make a comment on, I've spoken with the election commission, as far as local election commission, and with members of the election commission for the state of Arkansas. The two things to be aware of is in November, there are two referendum matters that are going to be voted on a Washington County ballot, both from similar circumstances. It's people of other cities doing a petition to repeal city ordinances. And so there will be 2 petitions to repeal that have been certified now to the Election Commission for Washington County for the November general election ballot. Both of those are laid out in a simple to repeal ordinance number and a for or against repeal of that ordinance number. So I agree with Mr. Williams that the law on this part is very, very murky, and at this point we've just agreed to disagree on the law, and what we're trying to do is do something that's short of throwing this into litigation. Nobody wants that. We believe that the residents of Fayetteville, they want the December 9th date. October 10th is the last day for the Election Commission to actually, quote unquote, put this on the ballot, so they have to have that in order to, under their guidelines and their time, be able to accomplish everything that needs to be done, the printing of the ballots and the absentee ballots and so on and so forth. So we would simply ask that as far as what's placed in the resolution tonight, that would simply be what's on the ballot. Unfortunately, for us, it's either good or bad. So if someone says this is inappropriate and there's a legal challenge, then we'll have to deal with that. But we simply ask that we don't cause the confusion, which would end up having to be decided by the Election Commission and turned over to the county to kind of deal with that. We simply ask that the only thing that be put in the resolution tonight having anything to do with ballot language would either be exactly what we've submitted on all the petitions, that same language, or something that simply says the language of the petition shall be the ballot language. And that way we could work through the normal process. And we believe that would be appropriate. We also believe that that would allow the process to move forward smoothly at the county level so that the election could be scheduled and the will of the people to hold this election at a special election on December 9th would be able to move forward. And that'd be all I had, unless Mr. Mayor or anybody has any questions.
What questions do we have, Mr. Stewart, from the council? No? Yes.
I understand that you're a paid attorney representing this group. Are you also a resident of Fayetteville?
I am not a resident of Fayetteville. I am a business owner in Fayetteville, and this is one of those things where I wish I was a resident of Fayetteville
I was just curious.
to do
Thanks.
that. But
Usually people say their address, and I know you're an attorney, so you didn't have to do that, but I was just curious. Thanks.
no problem.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all so much.
Okay, we're going to open it up for public comment, and I guess we will stay with the amendments first.
Yeah, it should only be about the legal issue here. There is no factual or any other kind of issue. It's just whether or not someone has some legal ability or to explain Travis's position better than he did, or my position better than I did. This is really not a factual issue. This is just whether or not we believe that we should go with his interpretation of the law or with mine.
Okay. Well, let's do it this way then. We'll take public comment, and you can be in agreement with the city attorney or Mr. Story and give your points. And, okay, I'm going to give everybody one term to Mike. When you step up here, give us your name and address. Keep your comments directed to me. Let's stay on topic, and do not engage a council member or another member of the public, okay? I don't want no hooping, no hollering, no hand clapping, no jeering, no booing, no yelling. And I will certainly enforce those rules, okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I believe the protocol here is to discuss the amendments in front of us, which does not include the language of Mr. Story. Am I wrong?
Yeah, let's see, you bring up a
Well,
point.
that is
Yeah.
correct, but I still think that, that's obviously the issue before you, is whether you should do anything, whether you should pass the resolution, as I have suggested, with the ballot language I have suggested, which is just the language of the ordinance only.
The discussion is, do we pass this
The KISS
amendment
Or not?
and support this amended resolution or not. Thank you.
Okay. All right, who would like to be first?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, clearly I'm just going to have to be really loud. Hi, my name's Laura. I live at 920 North Leverett Avenue over in Fayetteville. And I agree with Mr. Williams. I'm not a lawyer. I've never professed to be one. But my entire argument is, why would you not want your voters to be informed about what they're voting on? I know that a lot of the people that have been observing the things that we've been talking about and doing up here, they've heard of 119, but not everybody knows exactly what it is. And as heavily involved in this mess as I am, I don't know what referendum, whatever that number was. I've never heard that. I think it's very important to include that language on the ballot so that the people who are voting know exactly what they are voting for and what it does and what it does not do, because there has been a great deal of confusion and misinformation about that. So I agree with Mr. Williams. Thank you guys for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Shelley. I live at 774 South Cherry Lane in Fayetteville. I stand here before you again as both the director of the Rape Crisis Center and also the chair of the Keep Fayetteville Fair Ballot Question Committee. One of the things, obviously, I want to speak to fairness that's in our name, and in that same vein, I want to support our city attorney's way of viewing this issue. I think it's very important that those who signed the petition and those who collected signatures had the right to do so, had the legal right to exercise their muscles of democracy and sign that. But I would disagree that that speaks for the entire city of Fayetteville and its residents. You, as elected officials, speak for the entire city of Fayetteville and its residents. And my hope is that you will uphold the language Mr. Williams has said, because it is fair, it's transparent. I know, Mr. Mayor, that you have an incredible legacy of transparency in government. This particular issue, as we talked about for many hours in the past in this very room, will now put the rights of a minority in front of the vote of the majority. And for that reason alone, it is absolutely necessary that we have full transparency and people understand what they're voting for, and they have a fair shake at getting their vote to look the way they want it to be, whether it's on that paper ballot or on the electronic ballot. That's absolutely necessary. I think even in the process of collecting petition signatures, there's been a lot of misunderstanding. I've personally talked to people who misunderstood when they were signing the petition what it was for. So I think it would be very urgent that we make sure there's absolutely no misunderstanding for that voter who is standing there or sitting there getting ready to vote on this. As you can tell, I don't wear a suit to work every day like attorneys in the room do. Ironically, I wore today to work one of the awareness t-shirts that we have. And that awareness t-shirt is trying to reach younger people with the issue of our work. And I know those who oppose this ordinance also feel strongly about supporting issues around sexual assault. That was made part of the major public dialogue about it. The shirt I wear for you today, or not for you, but that I happen to wear to work today, says, I mustache for consent. We have another shirt that says, you mustache for consent. I believe I'm the only person in this room whose business is to clearly state the message of yes means yes, and no means no. We have to do that in this issue for the voters. What kind of message do we send our community as a whole? And I struggle in educating folks on this message every day. If we say for means against, and against means for, yes means no, and no means yes. Let's not send that message to our children. Let's not send that message to the voters. Let's uphold Mr. Williams. I think I stood here last time, against an amendment that Mr. Tennant was trying to do to put this on the public ballot immediately. And I can't imagine that his intention was to do it in a way that seemed confusing or unfair. So here we are. It's probably going to election. Let's make sure we do it in a fair and transparent way. My last point is, since I'm not an attorney, I have provided you with a memorandum from a couple of attorneys that have advised us at Keep Fayetteville Fair. I believe you all have it. It's from Mr. Preby and Ms. Riordan, and that, to me, encapsulates the reason legally that we should go with Mr. Williams' wording. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kyle Smith. I live at 2801 West Dove Drive in Ward 4. I told you last time I was here that I'm a math teacher. Tonight seems to have turned into more of a civics lesson, but that's okay, I'm flexible. Let's be careful. Muddying the ballot with language of yes to repeal and no to keep, that only prevents both sides from being able to discuss the merits of their position. It means conducting the civics lesson instead of debating the effects of the ordinance itself. For the hundreds of us that were in this room on August 19th, it may seem hard to believe, but there are thousands of people out there that still don't know anything about this ordinance, despite our best educational efforts. I would certainly defer to City Attorney's opinion for proper wording, but I urge you to keep in mind those people out there who don't know what's going on. This ordinance has not even yet taken effect, and it's completely new to them. 4,000 people may have read every word of this ordinance when they signed the petition. Some stories would indicate that's probably not the case. But they're not the only ones voting. When people go into a polling place, keep it simple. Let their votes mean what they would naturally assume that they would mean. When they're faced with a law they've never experienced, a no vote should mean no change. And a yes vote is for a positive action to adopt a new policy. I'm sure there will be many other speakers after me with different opinions. But when it's all through, when you decide the final language for the ballot, please remember what's really at stake. It's people. People who want to go to work, secure that they will be considered on the same qualifications as everyone else, so they can put food on the table and pay their taxes just like everyone else. Keep it simple. Present ballot language that will let everyone vote yes for a fair Fayetteville, yes for fairness, yes for upholding the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I know that one of our aldermen has a engagement with a political forum tonight at 7 o'clock, and I'd like to suggest a temporary rule change as we did at the last discussion of this, and to limit public comment from each speaker to 3 minutes. I'd make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Well, motion to second to keep the comments to 3 minutes, correct? Okay. Any discussion on that? Okay. Summer, would you please call the roll?
Schrottmeyer.
No.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Hetty.
Yes.
Tennant.
No.
Okay. So 3 minutes it is. I will keep the time. Who would like to be next? When you have 1 minute left, I will tell you have 1 minute left, okay? I'll give you time to come up and...
Take all that time, sir. My name is Carol, also known as Chris Christoffel. I live at 1505 East Overcrest here in Fayetteville. Sunday night I got a phone call, somebody doing a survey in regards to this whole issue and asking me questions about it. And several times I had to have them repeat the question 3 or 4 times to make sure I was answering or voting, if you will, the way I wanted to vote, because it was so confusing. I really do appreciate the idea of having all the wording on the ballot and letting me look at it, or anybody else look at it, and look at, my voting for this or against this, so everybody's vote counts the way they want it to count. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Erin Suddet, and I live at 1002 West Hughes Street, Apartment 8. And I'm not wearing a suit today, but I am an attorney, actually. I'm also a member of the Ballot Question Committee for Keep Fayetteville Fair. And I would just like to say that, although I'm not an election law expert, I do agree that, the law in that area can be murky. However, I think one thing that is clear is the Supreme Court's emphasis on the understanding of the voters and how important that is when we select that language. And so I would support the amended resolution as proposed by the city attorney today. And more than anything else, I think it's just common sense. I think it's, if we're all just putting all the other issues aside and we look at it, it makes sense to make it more clear, not have a bunch of, double positives or double negatives or whatever. So I think for those reasons, I would support the city attorney's position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Wind. I live at 147 East Spring Street here in Fayetteville. I own a small business that supports and promotes local artists, and I work a lot online and with media. And I think I don't need to tell any of you how quickly feelings and emotions on topics such as these get raised. And so I just want to say that even when a little bit of a conversation starts, it blows up so fast. And I think it's most important that people have really clear verbiage and clear communication about what it is that they're feeling so strongly about, because we do have such a close-knit community, and that information does spread quickly. And I think that people want to be involved in what's going on, and they can do that best with clear communication. And I don't think that that has been, at least tonight, obviously, the case all the way around. So I say yes for anti-discrimination, and I want everyone who does to understand why they're saying that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the council. Okay. Oh.
I apologize, Mayor. I'm Anthony McCaskill at 730 West Van Gogh Place. I wished to add my voice to those in support of Mr. Williams' language for the amendment, and also to say that if at all possible, the final language of the amendment should again include that a yes vote be in support of the Non-Discrimination Act and a no vote be against it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to bring it back to the council now.
Get a question?
Yes, you may.
Can you remind me, during the smoking vote, was the wording changed? What was the wording on the petitions as opposed to what ended up on the ballot? Do you remember the difference?
I did not go back there and study that, but I do think that the petitions there were a little bit closer to what would have been required for county ordinances, which is what I think should have been here, and what the initial petitions that were submitted to me looked like. In other words, they did not have the repeal language. The first one that I said looked fine did not have the repeal language on it. The second one, which I said I really didn't have time to look at, but I thought that the title of the ballot should be pretty close to the title of the ordinance, did begin to have the repeal language on it, but it also had the names of the ordinances and the name of the chapter also. And so that was at least getting closer to being okay, and was probably okay, and that's why I have not opined that I think the petition was invalid. I have said I think it's probably a valid petition. That's only my decision. It could be challenged, and a court could decide. But I don't remember precisely what the smoking ordinance titles were. Sorry, I did not look that up.
No.
I've been studying this issue, but I did not go back and look at that. I just remember that we went through this very process back then. I think the mayor probably remembers.
I do.
And it was even more fun than this last process, although not as late.
But you think consistency would be followed if we did what you're suggesting, consistent with what happened in the smoking? You think that would make it closer?
I think that is correct, and it also would be absolutely consistent with a county ordinance. because their county language tells you exactly what the ballot should say, and that is what I followed, which is basically the title of the ordinance being referred to the citizens, and you either vote for or against the ordinance. Unfortunately, that does not explicitly apply to municipalities, and why, I do not know. But I think maybe as part of our legislative package that we're going to do for the next legislature, we might ask our legislators to see if they can correct that void that we have right now in the law, so that we don't have this problem. I'm sure Travis would probably agree with me on that we'd like to see a little legislative work on this area, so we're not guessing.
But at the end of the day, it sounds to me like we're either gonna have 4 against the ordinance or 4 against repeal. That's what the wording difference is between what we're talking about. I mean, I appreciate the comment that was made that I think she said I wanted it to be fair or something when I put my resolution out there. She's exactly right, that this part of it, to me, I don't want to say it's not as important as the vote itself, but I have a tough time going against what has been said by the Supreme Court here, knowing that the county might go back and change it, and knowing that there might be litigation. I still sometimes have a problem with saying, oh, the Supreme Court, you know, what do they know? And I think I lean on that side of supporting what they've said, which is to make the ballot language clear, so that both sides can decide. That's the way I'm leaning on it. But it is a difficult question, so I appreciate, Kit, your work on figuring this one out. Thank you.
Okay. What is it? How much do we have in the council? Anything? Okay.
I just want to say that I do heartily support what our city attorney has suggested in the amendments. I think that, again, this is the clear way to get the information on the ballot. I don't like a bully proposition that threatens litigation, and the fact of the matter is, I feel confident as we move forward that we're doing the right thing.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Al.
I'll just add that after having read what our city attorney has proposed, I think that for my constituents, I have to look at this and say, what would make it the easiest for them if they were going to the ballot? And what would be the easiest way for them to look at this and vote? And I think that our city attorney has drafted the most clear version of what would be most clear to my constituents, so I'll be supporting what the city attorney has suggested.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Was there? No.
All right, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
And that's just
Now, we have to vote on the date.
Yes, that's just the amended, so the resolution as amended is now before the body.
I move we pass the resolution. as
Second.
amended.
Okay, which is a December the 9th date, correct?
Yes.
All right. All right, what discussion do we have among the council? What public comment do we have on the, resolution as a whole? Anything? Okay, bring it back to the council. If there's not any final comments, is there any final comments? All right, Saunders, please call the roll.
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
Okay, number 2, Blue and Green LLC. An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving the purchase of an ozone disinfectant system from Blue and Green LLC of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the amount of $1,780,825 plus any applicable taxes for the Nolan wastewater treatment plant. Kit.
Whereas the ultraviolet light system the city has used for wastewater disinfection since August of 1999 is near the end of its useful life as a primary disinfection system, and whereas the city has worked with Blue and Green LLC in a multi-year pilot test of an ozone disinfection system which was not available from any other source, and whereas the ozone disinfection system has been shown to reduce contaminants and color more than the city's current ultraviolet system, and also has many environmental benefits that outweigh those of ultraviolet or other disinfection systems. Now therefore it be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby finds that such circumstances constitute an exceptional situation where competitive bidding is deemed not feasible or practical, and therefore waives the requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizes the purchase of an ozone disinfection system from Blue Green LLC of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the amount of $1,780,825, plus applicable taxes for the Nolan wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The utility department, as well as the plant operator, CH2M Hill, have been working quite some time to look at a disinfection system that not only will treat to our current standards, but will also take us into the future. The ozone system is the type where it takes a multitude of more than one vendor putting their processes together, one to create the ozone and one to introduce it into the wastewater. We have Billy Ammons with us tonight with CH2M Hill to explain the relationship between those two and why we're asking for this bid waiver in order to guarantee the reliability of the product.
Okay. Evening, Billy.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Though I'm disappointed that the crowd was not interested in our item.
There's a few left.
I will attempt to speak to it nonetheless. Following the pattern established by Mayor Noland, for whom this particular facility is named, this treatment plant has always been at the forefront of protecting the precious water environment in northwest Arkansas. We led the way with biological nutrient removal for both nitrogen and phosphorus since first accepting incoming waste in 1988 and have performed far better than our permit requirements for those parameters for many years. Though at the time, the process that was selected and installed was only the second full-scale version in the country. Almost every facility in northwest Arkansas and many across the nation now treat their waste in a similar fashion. We initiated the use of ultraviolet disinfection for our treated effluent in 1999, which allowed us to continue to meet our high standards for preparing our effluent to be fully integrated into the local environment in a safe manner, as well as providing a more environmentally and community-friendly solution than the previous practice of using chlorine. Most new treatment facilities now use the same or similar process to disinfect their treated effluent. This system, as Kit mentioned, has come near the end of its useful life, however. But we are now at a point where yet another innovative and even more environmentally sound disinfection solution is within our grasp. Ozone has long been known to be a highly effective disinfectant, producing many positive benefits without the negative side effects of using chlorine. For most potential installations, however, ozone has simply been too expensive and inefficient to use in wastewater treatment unless there were a compelling regulatory or local environmental reason to do so. Blue and Green is a local company incubated through the University of Arkansas Genesis program and has developed a system to utilize ozone for disinfection that is much more efficient than previous technologies. This system is based on similar concepts to those utilized in the first product offered by this company to efficiently use oxygen in water. The City of Fayetteville was the first customer for that product over 6 years ago, and this system has performed even better than advertised, paying for itself several times over. Ozone will not only thoroughly disinfect the water we introduce into the White River, it will also produce a highly oxygenated stream of water that will have virtually no color and will have a significantly reduced level of emerging contaminants of concern, such as pharmaceuticals, that typically pass through the biological components of our existing treatment process. Due to the innovative nature of this system and the fact that it's protected by a number of patents and pending patents, that it is a complicated system of equipment, it is not feasible, however, to practically engage in a normal competitive bidding process. The proposed purchase of this ozone disinfection system from Blue and Green is expected to continue the highly successful pattern of implementing innovative systems that the City of Fayetteville has established for many years to protect our all-important resource of fresh water, and we appreciate your consideration of this request.
Okay, what questions do you have, Billy? I think it's a real good program. I've been looking at this since I was on the council, so it's really, really good. Yes, Don?
Mayor, we met with Vice Mayor Kenyon and the Water Sewer Committee to go through this process, why it was important, the fact that emerging contaminants, while not regulated totally today, is something that could be coming forward in the future, and why make this type of investment now, only to turn around and have to do something later when it becomes a regulated item. It also gives us the opportunity to use proprietary technology developed right here in our own local community. I want to thank Billy and Tim and Lynn and Clete Brewer and the team at Blue and Green for the work that they've done to keep the city on the leading edge of this. We hope that you'll support this. We did an extensive study pilot program because we will be the first city in the state to actually be permitted for this use. And so we're extremely excited about it, and it's consistent with being the progressive leaders that the city is in wastewater.
Absolutely. I can remember first looking at this when I was on the Water and Sewer Committee when I was on the council. I thought this would be a wonderful investment someday, and here it is before you. I know it did go through the Water and Sewer Committee.
That's what I was going to mention.
Go ahead.
Well, but Don went through what I was going to mention. It's exciting that we can utilize technology that has shown efficacy and efficiency in the plant where they've done their research. So that gave me, I'm always one out there looking at the bottom line, but this did give me confidence in the technology, as well as knowing that we are going to have further demands of controlling contaminants and effluent in the future, and so we're going to be a step ahead. So that's why I think this investment is valuable, and we're all pretty excited to get it implemented and get it operational. So thank you, Billy, and again, I think what Don covered is exactly right, and to keep this type of investment in the community is also just another bonus that we have to support technological advancement in our technology park and the activity that we're seeing coming out of there.
Any other comments from the council? What public comment do we have on this? So you now bring it back to the council.
I move we suspend the rules and go to the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving the purchase of an ozone disinfection system from Blue and Green LLC of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the amount of $1,780,825 plus any applicable taxes for the Nolan wastewater treatment plant.
Move we go to the third and final reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
An ordinance waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approving the purchase of an ozone disinfection system from Blue and Green LLC of Fayetteville, Arkansas, in the amount of $1,780,825 plus any applicable taxes for the Nolan wastewater treatment plant.
Any final comments from the council? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire,
Yes.
Adams. Long,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Marsh,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Petty,
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, tree preservation area modification for Frisco and Town Branch Trails. Resolution to approve a request by the City of Fayetteville to modify the geographic extent and location of certain tree preservation areas pursuant to 167.0412 Tree Preservation and Protection Unified Development Code of the Code of Fayetteville to construct sections of the Frisco and Town Branch Trails.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan and council members. A 0.8 mile long extension of the Razorback Regional Greenway is planned to connect Walker Park in South Fayetteville to Town Branch Trail and southwest to the future regional park. In order to construct the trail, portions of 2 tree preservation areas need to be modified to accommodate trail construction. Proposal is for the trails coordinator to oversee trail construction and coordinate with the urban forester on the project. For the displacement of trees for the trail construction, the city will gain an important trail connection linking two parks in South Fayetteville and beyond, as well as also the planting of mitigation trees to offset the impacted canopy. Funding for the mitigation tree planting and maintenance will be included in the project costs for Frisco and Town Branch trails, and these trees are proposed to be planted within multi-use trail easements or within city parks in the southeast or southwest quadrants as directed by the urban forester. And staff is recommending approval of this modification of this total area of 0.81 acres of 2 tree preservation areas for this trail construction.
Okay, what questions do we have in the council?
You're representing urban forest.
Yes, I'm an urban forester at the city.
You failed to mention that, and I think...
Okay, sorry. Derek Lynn, urban forester, City of Fayetteville.
Because there is some concern, I think, about whenever we have a tree preservation area and we look at taking the trees out, help me understand in a balanced way why this is necessary.
Years ago, these two different properties, Allied Storage and another property north of 18th Street, as a part of their development requirements to meet minimum tree preservation requirements through Chapter 167, were required to plat tree preservation areas to ensure the future protection of trees. It's also interesting to note that this was done with coordination of Trails Coordinator back in that day, and the intention was to both preserve trees and also maintain this land for this future trail connection. It was actually anticipated at that point. However, in order to do grading or these types of works in tree preservation areas, it's not compatible, and I'm not sure exactly the details of why that was, done together years ago, but the intention was to both preserve trees and allow for construction of this future trail corridor.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned the trees that they're going to replace to mitigate this loss. Is there an opportunity for those trees to be utilized along the South School corridor? I know we've been looking for some trees to go in with the sidewalk improvements that are planned for that area. Is this a possible source for trees for that project?
Which section of school?
The South School Avenue corridor, basically from the Town Branch Trail all the way up as far as we could sidewalk improvements planned for.
I would say there's sometimes some difficulty with the city gaining approval from the state highway department to do tree planting projects. I believe that's a state highway corridor there. So wouldn't say it's totally out of the question. It would be a challenge, and I think the intent of this, or the proposal anyway, from the Trails Coordinator and from Urban Forestry, is to try to put these trees back along trail easements. This is, trees are being removed in this area for the trail construction, and the idea here is to benefit those trail users with more trees and the shade that they benefit in other trail corridors. But that's something that we can look into if you like.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. What public comment do we have on this? Okay, bring it back to the council.
Move we pass the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the resolution. Sandra, any final comments? Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Kennett.
Yes.
Okay, number 4, Walton Arts Center cost share agreement. An ordinance to waive requirements to form competitive bidding and to approve a cost share agreement with the Walton Arts Center for the construction of a new Walton Arts Center administrative headquarters building. Kit.
Well, let me get to my ordinance here.
Sorry.
My secretary only
hurry things
left
a little?
me the resolution. Let's see if I... Now, let me look up here.
Okay.
Where would that be in here?
Well, how about those hogs?
Oh, I've got it. Okay. I like them hogs, though. I hate to interrupt you. Okay. Whereas the construction of the Spring Street parking deck requires the removal of the existing Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters building, and whereas it is more practical and cost-effective to work cooperative with the Walton Arts Center to facilitate the joint construction and expansion of a new administration headquarters building, and whereas the Walton Arts Center has agreed to reimburse the City of Fayetteville for all costs and expenses of constructing and finishing out that exceed the amount the city agrees to contribute to the project. Now therefore it be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas, Section 1, that the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby determines an exceptional situation exists in which competitive bidding is deemed not feasible or practical, and therefore waives the requirements for formal competitive bidding and approves the attached cost-share agreement with the Walton Arts Center for the Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters building, which obligates the City of Fayetteville to pay for construction of the basement shell structure and to contribute $1.4 million toward the construction and finishing out of the basement, ground floor, and second floor offices. In Section 2, the City Council of the City of Fayetteville, Arkansas hereby authorizes the City of Fayetteville to pay all the construction costs for the project and to receive reimbursement from the Walton Arts Center for any costs and expenses exceeding the amounts the City of Fayetteville has committed to.
Jeremy.
Mayor, in December of 2012, after considerable discussion and a lot of public input sessions relating to locating a new municipal parking deck in the Dixon Street entertainment area, the City Council voted to select the block which contains the Walton Arts Center as the preferred location. Citing this new deck in the location of the northwest corner of Spring and School, directly behind the Walton Arts Center Theater building, requires the removal of the administrative headquarters office building that housed most of the Walton Arts Center administrative staff. The city agreed to work at that time cooperatively with the Walton Arts Center to facilitate joint construction projects, two of which were known at the time, parking deck and a major expansion of the Walton Arts Center facility itself. This was to be done in an effort to minimize disruption and provide the needed cultural arts and entertainment infrastructure in this growing Dixon Street area. To that end, the city also agreed through that resolution to excavate and construct a basement level backstage expansion area for the Walton Arts Center back of house functions, and to construct an integrated north liner building with the parking deck project to replace their office building. During that process, if you'll remember, the Walton Arts Center requested some time to master plan with their architects as well, and they decided during that process to go ahead and expand their office building, understanding that they would realize the benefits of that with one construction project for the office building. To that end, they chose to expand their facility at this location at their cost to meet present and future needs. The city already has, as you know, a contract for excavation and demolition of the existing office building. That construction contract is being considered separately with the Baldwin and Shell under a guaranteed maximum price for the greater part project and the replacement and expansion of the Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters office building. This particular cost-share agreement is intended to document and formalize the process by which the city will pay for all the construction costs for this particular project and then subsequently be reimbursed by the Walton Arts Center for any cost exceeding what the city has committed. Anything over and above the cost that we've committed, which is what Mr. Williams mentioned, $1.4 million, would be the responsibility of the Walton Arts Center. Funding for this particular item is being recognized and appropriated within the contract amendment number, or change order number 1, which is the next item on the agenda. That's a separate agenda item that kind of wraps all of those financial parts together. As I mentioned, the city has committed $1.4 million to the cost of the structure, the finish out of the basement, the ground floor and the second floor offices of the new Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters building. Right now, I believe the estimated cost of the Walton Arts Center portion of this building within the guaranteed maximum price on the subsequent item is roughly a $1.7, $1.8 million. So staff is recommending approval of this cost share agreement.
Okay, what questions do we have for Chairman from the council? Okay. What public comment do we have? Okay. What's the wishes of the council?
Move we go to the second reading, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the second reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams. Yes. Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
An ordinance to waive the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approve a cost-share agreement with the Walton Arts Center for the construction of the new Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters building.
I move we go to the third and final reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go to the third and final reading. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
An ordinance to waive the requirements of formal competitive bidding and approve a cost-share agreement with the Walton Arts Center for the construction of the new Walton Arts Center Administrative Headquarters building.
Okay. What final comments do we have in the council on this? Okay. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
Yes.
Okay, number 5, Baldwin and Shell Construction Company Amendment Number 2. Resolution to authorize Amendment Number 2, the contract with Baldwin and Shell Construction Company for construction pay services for the Spring Street Parking Deck Project and approve the budget adjustment. Kit. Oops, sorry.
I think this is,
Sorry. Jeremy,
you got me last time, this
Yeah.
time it's a resolution.
keeping you away.
This is a resolution, and the staff is recommending approval of it as a change order with the Baldwin and Shell Construction Company for the overall parking deck project. Obviously, the city is constructing a parking deck in downtown entertainment district area behind the Walton Arts Center. The objective there is to relieve current parking shortfalls and to create supply in an area anticipated to see increased parking demand. Garver LLC has led our design contract and team for engineering and architectural services thus far, coordinating with the city's team and also in collaboration with the Walton Arts Center and Bora Architects. Baldwin and Shell Construction Company was selected to be our construction manager on the project, and so all of our bid process, estimating, and construction will happen under their purview. I wanted to, at the risk of repeating myself, I want to give a little bit of a timeline for the project, just so anyone listening knows. It will be an abbreviated one, because there's a lot has gone on in this particular project. But back in 2010, the city established the paid parking program in the entertainment district. The reason for that, essentially, was to establish at least a year's worth of revenue to understand our bonding capacity for future parking improvements within that area. The council approved in November of 2011 a bond ordinance. A preliminary design contract, essentially a site selection contract, was approved with Garver in February of 2012, and from February until December of that year, there were a number of public input sessions, meeting with Walton Arts Center, stakeholders, business owners, for a number of months, and finally in the last meeting, I believe, in December of 2012, the council voted on and selected this particular site for the parking deck. We also approved a contract to begin preliminary design work, which began in earnest in 2013. The majority of that year was spent in the design process. The latter part of 2013, in November, we received our first formal cost estimates and first formal word. We knew going into that we were feeling like we were over budget, but that's when we began understanding that, and I believe David Juergens gave a presentation about that at the time. In January and February of 2014, so about a month and a half later, there was a presentation that had removed the east liner building as a potential cost-saving measure. The council expressed concerns with that, and so we took about a month and a half to look at the options to present to you, and brought that back to you with a recommendation to include an abbreviated version, essentially a smaller liner building, which you all gave the go-ahead, and we proceeded into our detailed design to get to 60% completion. In March, we reached that time frame, that benchmark of 60% completion, and submitted those plans to Baldwin and Shell, who is our construction manager again. They did some cost estimating for us based on that level of completion, and we received the second round of cost estimates in April. We gave you all an update then. We were roughly $2.5 million over budget at that time, in April of this year. And so we have worked from April through June, value engineering and soliciting bids to move the project forward in a way that we felt really to get formal pricing, to understand if our cost estimates were really off, they were too high, or if we were right on target. We decided to break the project also at that time into two phases, demolition and excavation being the first contract. We did that and opened those bids. I don't remember exactly when that was. I think it was in May, and awarded a contract for the first phase of the project. If you'll remember, that actually came in around $160,000 under our projected estimates at the time. So we felt relatively good going into the full project. We scheduled a groundbreaking August 25th, which was a Monday. On Friday afternoon, late, 4 o'clock, I believe, we opened bids for the rest of the project, and realized at that point in time we were well over budget, in excess of $5.3 million at the time. So we brought that back to you all on Tuesday, the 26th. The mayor made the decision to delay the groundbreaking on the project, bring you all the information that we had at our disposal based on that bid opening, and also to give you what our recommendation was, which was to hold off on the project until, on the first phase, until we could bring you all a recommendation, and also try to find some ways to reduce the price on this particular project. We've been working since August 26th on that. I gave you an update for about a month. We've been working on that, and I gave you an update last week where we were. And so here we are with this particular recommendation on what we feel like is the best path forward on this project. In the past month, as I mentioned, the city and design teams have been working on several options to present to the council. This contract amendment represents several steps that we've taken in that direction, and I want to go over a few of those with you. First and foremost, the overall contract for construction is roughly $10.5 million. So that includes the Walmart Center portion of construction. This particular contract is for a little over $10 million because, if you'll remember, we've already approved $448,000. That's how the math works. And I'll refer to several of these numbers on page 6 of 74, which I've given to you this summary every time we've given an update here about our funds and expenditures, and hopefully keep that up to date so you can follow along there. Alderman Shell, after our initial bid opening, prepared a competitive proposal to manage the concrete work themselves. If you'll remember, the majority of our overage in bids was related to concrete pricing. We were about $1.8 million above our estimates, which were above the original budget. So we were definitely over in concrete. We started asking questions, obviously, pretty hard questions about where we thought that was coming from. And I think the best answers we got that we understood were a competitive environment for projects within the region and statewide. As you all know, there's, I think, over $1 billion of road work and construction work going on with our HCD. Within the state, there's a very large high school project that's being bid at the same time that we've been bidding this project in Bentonville, a 10-story office building in Rogers. A lot of the same bidders that we're talking to are in the same exact competitive market for those types of projects. We also realized that our deck in the overall scheme of decks is a little small for larger firms out of Texas, out of construction companies out of Oklahoma or Kansas to mobilize and bring their full crews here. The 236 space deck is not like 717 spaces the university recently constructed. So your economies of scale aren't there necessarily for all contractors to be interested in this size of project. It's also a little bit large for some of the smaller concrete companies. You all are well aware we just came out of a recession where a lot of our construction companies downsized or went out of business altogether. We're hearing in the private market, Whole Foods is being an example, they're having a very hard time finding contractors able to do their project because they simply aren't here or they don't have the capacity within this area, which is increasing prices. So that's not just in the public sector, it's in the private sector we're seeing this as well. We've also had conversations with our peers up and down the region, and we're seeing multiple projects of that nature, infrastructure projects, where you all saw us happily bringing in contracts below budget, and in years past, we're not seeing that currently. So It's something that we're keeping an eye on with our future projects, but we definitely think that was some of the biggest reasons that we saw that with this particular project. Baldwin and Shell prepared a proposal to save about $1.1 million in concrete by self-performing the work. Essentially, they would manage all the subcontractors as opposed to a turnkey type project. So that was one of the ways we were able to save some money. We've been having negotiations with subcontractors, change in design specifications, identifying alternative systems and processes and products within the project. And to date, we've been able to save roughly $595,000 in the last month to find savings within this project. That includes both the Walton Arts Center's portion of the project in the Liner building and the city's. We've identified at least one task that the city can self-perform that results in about $70,000 in savings. Specifically, the City Transportation Department will be trenching and installing conduit for the Spring Street overhead power, fiber, cable, telephone lines. For both aesthetic reasons and safety reasons, we decided to place those lines underground. Originally in the project, they were to be remaining above ground. But we talked to AP, talked to a number of contractors, and we felt for safety and aesthetic reasons as well for the future of this area, highly pedestrian environment, they would place those underground. So we were able to save about $70,000 by doing that in-house. I also mentioned last Tuesday we were rebidding 4 of our trade packages that had come in over budget, and most of those either had no bids or only one bid, so there's very little competitiveness. And new pricing for some of our wall panels, some of that results in some savings there as listed. We have not received full bids for our steel work, which is a pretty large package. We anticipate that hopefully later this week or next. And so if that actually comes in lower than what we have currently within the budget, we'll realize savings on top of this guaranteed maximum price as well. And we can recognize that within a change order to reduce that coming out of reserves. We've also negotiated outside contracts, 2 of which were approved on the consent agenda tonight, in savings of approximately $150,000 for our construction administration services. And then finally, Baldwin and Shell offered in their proposal a reduction in their fee that was originally negotiated back in 2013, and that also saved us about $50,000. That was at their initiative that they brought that forward. With all that being said, the current guaranteed maximum proposal for this bid package is a little over $10 million. The total expenditures when you combine design, testing services, utility relocation agreements, the Walton Arts Center's moving expenses, and temporary housing essentially for their offices, is roughly $12.3 million, leaving a gap of around $3.6 million. We're proposing the following, that the council appropriate $1.5 million received from the Walton Arts Center governance amendments earlier this year back to the Walton Arts Center campus, so essentially removing the funding that was invested within the Walton Arts Center's campus and placing it back there within the parking deck and Liner building that could assist with that expansion. And then also appropriate $2,160,758 out of the general fund reserves. On Friday, I submitted some numbers to you. I think they were around $2.3 million. That's actually come down a little bit since then. We've got some better numbers there. So this is the final numbers that we're recommending for you all to consider. Funding for this contract, as you all know, comes from a variety of sources. Parking revenue bond proceeds. We had some budgeted parking funds that were for this, and we've added to that from their reserves to help supplement that the gap. And drainage funds, we allocated $75,000 because we feel some of the drainage improvements will actually assist not just the Walton Arts Center and parking deck, but the entire Spring Street area. The general fund reserve, obviously, is the last place we like to recommend this funding gap come from, but it's where we feel like it is necessary to recommend this particular funding gap be appropriated. My staff has updated you all on several occasions. The cost estimates have consistently been higher since very early on in the process, since 2013, than our initial budget estimated with our parking revenue bonds. There's been a lot of time and effort put into estimating, design changes, overall systems evaluations, to provide a project that we feel meets the council's expectations, but also the expectations we got from citizen input meetings all throughout this process. We've taken input from the council and also the public to design a deck structure to incorporate liner buildings at the south and east corners, as well as the north liner building, which will house people every day. It'll be an active street scene, we believe, that will not just be a simple parking deck on a block, but actually have people walking and active within that area, which is necessary for, we believe, an active street scene. And this project, finally, is, in our opinion, absolutely necessary for the Walton Arts Center to expand at this location. I know there are members from the Walton Arts Center here that can speak to that better than I, but by doing the basement expansion, they're able to expand their back-of-house facilities, which is necessary for them to continue offering the caliber and type of shows that they plan to offer with the expansion. The exterior elements that create the architectural interest of the facade have remained since we got the direction from the council back in February, and those have not been cut out of the system, but instead we focused really on structural and interior systems and specifications and elements. If you approve this contract tonight, that completes the procurement process for the construction phase services. We have included a $200,000 contingency. It was not within the budget for most of the project, honestly, but we felt like it was important to at least include something within the contingency. If that's not utilized, obviously, then it goes right back into reserves, and so we're under $2 million in reserves at that point in time, having to utilize that. Staff's recommending approval of this resolution, which has a number of attachments and budget adjustments that we've been working with budget and accounting, and I certainly thank them for their assistance, as well as Walton Arts Center, Garber, Baldwin and Shell, and Chris Brown, our city engineer, for assisting us with this process. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
What questions do we have for Jeremy on this? Today? Okay. What public comment do we have on this?
Good evening. My name is Greg Lee. I'm a lifelong resident of Fayetteville. My address is 1 East Center here in Fayetteville. Speaking on behalf of the Walton Arts Center, I have the honor of serving as chairman of the board of the Walton Arts Center, and I'll be very, very brief. We certainly, as a council and the administration of the Walton Arts Center and the patrons of the Walton Arts Center, urge you to pass this resolution to go forward with the parking deck. We, like you, are not happy about how costs have come in much higher than were originally anticipated. We face a bit of that ourselves as we're working through the balance of the expansion plans for the Walton Arts Center. However, this parking deck is a very important element of the expansion. It's very important to the entertainment district, and I would urge you to have a very long-term view about this. I would suggest to you that when the people originally supported bond money for a parking deck, that they recognized the value of a parking deck to Fayetteville's entertainment district and the value that was for the city of Fayetteville. We know from polling our patrons that the single most important thing on their mind is the availability of parking. So the improvement to the parking circumstances in the entertainment district with the successful construction of this parking deck will not only benefit the Walton Arts Center, it will not only sort of deliver a part of the promise on the overall expansion of the Walton Arts Center, but it will also be, in fact, very good for the entire entertainment district. So, again, I'm a businessman. I understand the pressures it brings upon you that this has cost more than was originally anticipated, but we would certainly urge you to pass it, and I want you to know that we are very much in support of the previous resolution that you passed. You know that we have certainly committed to making to paying those funds that were discussed that are over and above the city's commitment for the offices and the backstage, and we're all about doing that. We're all about raising the balance of the funds to complete the expansion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, bring it back to the council. Yes.
Well, we've said a couple times that nobody likes surprises. I guess this is one of those that I think we're doing a pretty good job of handling it. You know, first I want to say that I just couldn't be more impressed with how this has been managed, I think, since the start of the year, whenever the management of the project changed hands, whenever we had a staff member leave who was managing it previously. So I want to thank you for all the updates we've had so far. Just a couple of things. I want to give the council an update. I brought a proposal, a tentative proposal to you several months ago, maybe more than 6 months ago, that we form a partnership with Partners for Better Housing to construct housing and potentially retail as the East Liner building instead of building it ourselves. That process is still moving forward based on our tentative agreement to allow that to happen. It's proceeding as planned. They're in design right now, so it's by no means is it a done deal. By no means is it a guarantee. But as much risk as can be managed on that now, I think is being managed, and I think it's still, I'm still very optimistic that that's going to happen. And if you recall, that's a savings on this project of somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 or so, so it's significant. Two, I wanted to ask that if we do fund the gap here out of reserves, that we consider on paper using those reserves to pay for the liner buildings we do construct. We've been advised in the past that if those are paid for out of bond money, then there are restrictions on the tax-exempt activities that can take place in those, which is why we've talked about using those for municipal purposes. But I think that if we were able to direct the reserves here to those portions of the project, we may be able to consider other uses in those buildings. I can't say for certain that that would be possible, but I know that the university used a similar process and made a similar decision about the Garland Avenue deck when they constructed their retail spaces there. And the last thing, this is a real point I want to make that I just think is so important we get right. I appreciate the one comment we had was about the long-term view of this, because we all had different reasons, those of us that were here when we implemented paid parking, and mine was really to give us the opportunity to see some more, some of the properties in downtown Fayetteville filled in. I think downtown Fayetteville is beautiful, but it definitely has what I've called a couple of times missing teeth properties. The West Avenue parking lot now, I think, is one of the biggest ones in our downtown, and that's one of the reasons that I think even today, with the kind of surprises we've had, building this deck is still absolutely paramount. We have the potential to pay these reserves costs back through a number of means. Increased revenue from the parking program itself is one that we've discussed, but also, Mayor mentioned at the agenda session, the potential sale of some of the other land that we own in the city. And there's no land that we own that's more valuable than that West Avenue parking lot. We know that the University of Arkansas Community Design Center did some grant work to show us what the potential of that piece of property is and what filling in that gap in downtown might be able to do for us. And we know that has important implications, I think, for increasing tax revenues and so forth. I think now is the time for us to really underscore that point. Whenever we're looking at this project and what building this deck would be able to do for Fayetteville, for downtown Fayetteville, I think we need to think about what it enables us to do next. And that's one, in my opinion, that's one of the most important things we can do if we get this deck built. And we should consider that action as kind of a follow-up piece for the exact same strategy that we're considering tonight.
Okay. Mark.
I'm going to endorse something that Matthew says. I live in this area, and I walk from George's over to the Arts Center a lot, and that frontage property along Dixon is so valuable. And if we indeed can sacrifice a few parking spaces to realize or to somehow develop that property to pick up some of this gap that we're seeing here, I think that helps me move forward with this, and it's certainly a vision that I would support as we move forward. We also, when you look at the design center study and you look at the possibility of density and development there and green space reclamation, this is going to add to the value of this area. So I'm not going to forget that whenever I move forward to take this out of the general fund. Some people have said, well, you're taking this out of the general fund, but you're not looking at other parts, other needs in the city, such as some salaries, maybe for some emergency responders or whatnot. But this is very different because this is a one-time expenditure that I think that we can reclaim with careful management of some options by moving some parking over to the deck. And that is the reason that I have to seriously consider this, even though I don't like it. Whenever you say something like we've reevaluated structural systems, I hope that that means we've looked at them seriously, and I do trust our team that's working on this so that we have that savings there. Being a simple man, I sometimes think, well, maybe if it's a parking deck, it could be just a simple parking deck. But on the other hand, we're looking at the most valuable property in the city right now that's eligible for development, so we must protect the integrity of the development as we move forward, and that's why the liner building I see as an important element, even though the principled part of my psyche says, well, just put up a simple parking deck. A parking deck's a parking deck. So that's why I will be supporting this, and I know that there will be some people that question that as I move forward, since I generally am very conservative, especially with a reserve fund. So I wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Sarah?
I wanted to just echo again Matt's statements about appreciation for Jeremy and his team. I feel like you've done a great job keeping us informed throughout this whole process, and I really appreciate your efforts at value engineering the project. And you know, I think it's important that again we take the long view and realize that we're constructing a building that will hopefully stand in our downtown 100+ years. And so, you know, it's important that we do make wise decisions from a budgetary perspective, but it's also important that we not cut corners, because this is going to be an important part of our streetscape for, you know, beyond my lifetime and beyond probably everyone's lifetime in this room. So I think it's important that we go ahead and we send the money and we do it right. So I'm definitely going to be supporting this. Thank you.
Yes, Alan.
Well, I'll be brief. Matthew, Sarah, Mark, you all thank the staff. I really think you did a good job getting the excess down to about $2.1 million, which I think is pretty remarkable considering we were looking at a funding gap of about $5 million, and that probably would have been something that I wouldn't have been able to support taking out of the reserves in the case of an ice storm or some other catastrophic event like that. But the staff worked very hard to get this down to a feasible level. And at this point, if we didn't build the deck and take the money from the reserves, it would cost the city about the same amount to get out of the bond fund. So we might as well go ahead and build the deck and have the assets of the city of Fayetteville and be responsible with taxpayers' funds. So thank you again for all the hard work.
Any other comments? Yes.
I have a question actually, probably for Paul, if I could.
Okay.
And Paul, I don't know, I'm just trying to think of any possible way to do something, and I'm sure you guys have probably thought about this, but the $250,000 that is contracted a year that goes back to the Walton Arts Center, that is contracted for, I think they say operational services or something, and other than parking attendance, I'm not sure what it is, but there's that $250,000. I'm trying to think of a way to use that or renegotiate that or put that into the ability to raise money for this so that we don't have to get it out of a part of it or some of it or something. It just bothers me that we're writing that check every year, and I know I was part of the signing of the lease. I get it. But I'm just thinking that could go a long way. They're getting a parking deck and new offices out of this thing. could we partner with them somehow to offset some of this cost using some or all of that $250,000? Is that even a possibility?
Well, I think that's a question. I did not negotiate that contract. Don did. Anything's possible through discussions. Of course, that's $250,000 per year. I mean, we would have to front the money under any case out of the general fund. That $250,000 essentially was to provide services for shows, things of that nature, to children and to people who couldn't otherwise afford to appreciate the entertainment.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we take it. I'm just trying to figure out if you got a chunk of money like that.
And again, anything is possible. However, I think that was certainly the council at that point in time considered that was something of value to the complete citizenry.
No, I understand. I just don't think we saw the shortfall coming to this. So that would have changed my mind back then. $250,000, you know. I don't know. I was just thinking. Thank you, Paul.
Mayor, just to clarify, factually, want to make sure that everyone understands that that money, none of that goes towards parking or event parking staff. The city used to contract separately for event parking staff, and then we took that back in-house with your approval prior to last year's budget, because we felt like we could do it at a cost that was maybe less to the city than what we were contracting. So that already has been eliminated and taken back in-house at the city. The $250,000 does have a contingency as it relates to bond coverage. You'll remember that you approved that if we were into a problem of revenue coverage for the bonds, that we would take that as a means of paying that coverage and not buy services that year. And it's a direct correlation to the services that were attached to the contract that the council approved. So if we cut that money to apply that money to other items, it would affect the operating budget of the Walton Arts Center and therefore reduce the programming that we're currently getting for those dollars, which is primarily school-age children education.
Yeah. And again, I'm not saying that we should take it away. I'm just trying to think of a way to use that money and not have to dip into reserves. Because my huge thing here is this is about as disappointed as I've ever been in the city, I think. And we can blame the price of concrete, we can blame the recovery from the recession, and we can blame the Easter Bunny, but none of that really matters. What bothers me and what seems to bother a lot of people that I talk to is there's a lot of, it's not our fault. That's what I think people are hearing a lot of. It's not our fault, it's not our problem. Hey, just, you know, costs went crazy on us. It doubled, sorry. And that really bothers me. It's nothing personal, and I don't think anybody did anything wrong, but, you know, Jeremy Pate, I want to thank him for his work, but for those of you that don't know, Jeremy Pate is doing not only his full-time job, but a full-time job of a man that was the highest paid employee in the city. And I know we're trying to hire that position, and I know we've given a couple offers and it hasn't worked out. But when you are short-staffed like this, things like this happen. I don't think Jeremy had anything to do with this, and I don't think the mayor or anybody else had anything to do with this, from a personal standpoint. But it's a problem when you don't have enough people working in the city. Things like this happen. And regardless of why it happened, this happened on my watch. It happened on every council member's watch here. It happened on the mayor's watch. But I don't hear a lot of that. I don't hear a lot of that, and that bothers me. Doesn't make it better or worse, but it bothers me. I think the city has to take a leadership position here, and I don't hear that. When things go bad, leadership is just as important as when things are good. And we got problems, folks. There's holes in the boat. It's not sinking, but sometimes I think we need to take it out of the water for a while and fix the boat. We've got an agenda item on here tonight about possibly more policemen, because we may not have enough policemen in this city. And the request, I think, or the feasibility study is something like 5 officers. That's a lot of money. We have 18 frozen positions in this city that's been years since I've been on the council, and we haven't filled those, not just the one I mentioned with Jeremy. That's difficult for me to swallow. That we're just going to keep letting our city staff just keep doing the work of 1, 2, 3, 4 people. I've talked to a lot of firemen lately. We've owed them a raise for years. Not just a raise to make them rich, but a raise to get them to market value. Ask them if they support this, because I have. They wholeheartedly supported dipping into reserves for Mount Keesler, at least the ones I talked to. I can't say wholeheartedly. And for Gully Park. But try to talk to them about, hey, we got a guy maybe going to Rogers. We got a guy looking at other towns because he can't afford to be a fireman here. Now, is the city looking at ways to do it? Yeah, I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying they're ignoring it. But it bothers me when we're multiple years of this promise now. How many more promising years do we have left? And we're pulling $2.4 million out of a reserve where $250,000 of it would pay them off to a market wage. And I'm not saying that people are not taking their responsibility for the taxpayers' dollars. As a matter of fact, I trust the people up here to do that. But I'm really bothered by this, if you can't tell. And using $2.4 million of our reserves is unacceptable to me right now. Of course I want the parking deck. I absolutely want the parking deck. But as my grandmother would say, are you throwing good money after bad? I think we might be. And maybe a no vote here sends this thing back to the drawing board. Maybe it completely messes it up and it never gets built. Maybe there's other ways to negotiate it with some of the things that Matthew talked about, and maybe, I don't know, some way. Maybe a no vote here, if we vote it down, means this is our version of the incinerator. You know, it's Mayor Jordan's incinerator 2.0 30 years from now when people talk about it. I don't know that. But I can't get over this. And I have asked many, many times up here, when we've passed a really good idea, how are we going to do the details? And I'm very, very concerned with sometimes I get an answer of, well, don't you remember the ice storm? We got through that, didn't we? We can figure this one out too. It's unacceptable to me. So maybe like the ice storm, we can figure this one out. I hope so. But I can't vote for this because we've got too many things to do right now. Police, fire, 18 staff positions, $40,000 for a special election. At some point, we just might have to say, hold on. Because this is not free reserves. This is not free money. This is taxpayer money. And I honestly don't think that the taxpayers approve of us doing this right now. So again, I'll get off my horse, but this has really bothered me. And I think we're all at fault here. Thank you.
First of all, let me address a couple of things. Just so everybody knows, I'm the mayor of this city. I take full and complete responsibility for this deck and the overage of this deck. Staff works for me. It's not the council's fault. It's not the staff's fault. It's not the citizens' fault. It's my fault. Now, I take the responsibility. But let me tell you what I do. I got so much coming in, and I got so much going out. And my job is to keep us between the road ditches. Sure, I know we're going to be looking at police officers. You can add 5 more police officers. You can add 10. You can add 20 firemen. You can build some new stations. All that takes is one important thing, and that's the money. Now, it's about $2 million to get out of this, or it's $2.3 to build the deck. Now, I think, in my estimation of this, is it wonderful? Does anybody think in this room for 1 minute, as a mayor of this city, I sat here and decided I'd like to see this thing go $2.3 million over? And Jeremy Page has kept this council up every month with a report of where this thing is going. It's not like nobody knew. I knew it was beginning to skyrocket. And I will tell you this, Jeremy Pate brought you a report, and if you didn't know, that was your fault. Now, to the citizens, folks, I do the best I know how to do around here. And I have critics, and I have people that write things that I don't particularly like to read. And they say things I don't particularly like to hear. But you know what? I do the best I know how to do around here, and I'm going to keep on doing it to the end. And if the end brings me out all right, it's like Abraham Lincoln says, the end brings me out all right. It doesn't make any difference what people said or what people wrote. I'll be okay. If it brings me out wrong, Lincoln says it doesn't matter if 10 angels from heaven swear you were right, nobody's going to believe it. And you live with that. Now we're going to get through this deck. We got to build this deck. I said and I listened to the Walton Arts Center, and they said their number one priority was to build the deck. I went down and talked to business owners back in 2009. You know what they told me? They told myself and Steve Clark this, about 40 of them. They said, we've been promised a deck for 20 years. When are you all going to build it? So we implemented paid parking because we knew it was important. You don't build this deck, you're not going to get the expansion. You don't get the deck and the expansion, this downtown area is going to start to die. And I am not going to let that area of this city die. Now, my position is to build this deck, and I will tell you something. You all steered me in the right course after the first of the year because I wanted to cut the cost of this deck. And you told me we owed it to the citizens to build this deck right. And I have an adage, you build it once, you build it right, and you build it forever. And that's what we need to do here. I apologize to you back in January that I took that position. Now, I apologize to you, the public, the Walton Arts Center, and anybody else who wants to hear it. I'm sorry this is $2 million over, but we need to build this deck for this city to be competitive with this region, and that is my position as the mayor of this city. Now, what other comments do we have?
I have a comment, Mayor.
Yes.
And let me make it clear. The mayor campaigned on this as a cornerstone of his campaign in 2008 and 2012. I have no doubt that he wants to build this deck. And as I said before, I want this deck built. It doesn't change my concern about where we are as a city. Do I think that if the parking deck doesn't go up, that area will shrivel up and die? No. But that's my opinion. I wholeheartedly believe that the mayor wants to build this deck. And if it gets built, so be it. But I have to vote my conscience on where we have needs in this city and where to move money from one pile to another. That's part of my responsibility. And I will respectfully hear the votes of my fellow councilmen and will be fine with the outcome, as I always am. But I absolutely do not believe that right now is the time to pull this money when we have things that I believe are more pressing. Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Adele.
Well, I'd just like to say that I'm ready to build the deck. Thank you.
Anybody else? No, if there's not any final comments, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
I move we pass the resolution.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Wait a minute, we got to do some readings here. I need somebody to make a motion and go to second reading.
So moved.
It's a resolution.
Mayor, it's a resolution.
Sorry, I apologize again. The mayor's a little off. In the right sort of way.
We have a motion, I think, by Alderman
Yeah.
Petty to pass the resolution.
Yes, sir.
Is that
We
right?
have a
Is there
motion and a second to pass the resolution. Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmires. Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Petty.
Yes.
Tenet.
No.
All right. Now for the next order of business. Number 6, Police Department, 9th beat feasibility study. A resolution to request that the administration study the necessity and feasibility of adding a ninth beat and 5 additional police officers to the Fayetteville Police Department. Alan, I believe this is yours.
Yes, I appreciate, everyone taking the time just to, think about this, and I appreciate Alderman Adams for co-sponsoring this with me. I'm gonna be very brief. This is just a resolution to research the necessity and feasibility of going from 8 to 9 police beats in the city of Fayetteville. We have one of the best police forces in the state of Arkansas. And the reason I want to research this is just to maintain the fact that I want us to continue being that best police force in the state of Arkansas. This doesn't address frozen positions, like you pointed out, Justin, but it does address things that haven't been evaluated in years. So I do think it's important because we have the lowest number of police per capita out of the 10 largest cities in the state of Arkansas. We have a median crime rate, and our fire and police are the number one service, or part of the number one services provided by our city. And response times have slightly increased. Now, that's something that we can control if we have the data to back it up and keep that from being a continuing trend. But that's something that we need, is more data to back it up, and just to have that discussion at budget time and see if we can find the resources to accommodate that or not, if it's needed. But the disparity between the population and our police coverage will continue to grow if we do not start taking steps to correct this disparity. This resolution just asks the council to discuss and research the topic, and I believe the first step is a resolution like this to potentially address this.
And you want this to complete the study in about a month?
During October, so that we could have it,
Will do.
before the December 17th budget discussion.
Now, I'll tell you what I think I'm going to bring during these budget discussions. We're going to bring the 5 officers, and I'm also going to bring the 26 frozen positions, what it costs. You need to know those costs. You need to know the cost of what it's going to cost to bring firemen up to market. You're going to need to know the cost of what it's going to take to do a step for the police, a step for the fire, and whatever it takes for our non-uniform staff. And I'm going to roll this out for you. And I'm going to let you look at what I look at. And then you can make whatever calls you want to make, and I certainly welcome your input, and we'll do whatever you need to do. So we will have that study prepared for you in about a month, and I'm going to add all this other stuff in there too, so you know. All right? Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're very welcome.
I co-sponsored this with Alderman Long after
I
he did
will
a
be-
lot of work on this ahead of time. Appreciate our chief giving us some information. Some of this has already been done as far as the research is concerned, but having this conversation, just looking forward, is really important, I think. The other day at agenda session, when I spoke on this, I said, I feel very safe in this city, and I do, and I appreciate the good work. By the time I got home, a Ward 4 citizen had written to me and said that people across the street from her house had been broken into just that weekend or whatever, motorcycle stolen. So I didn't even get home before someone heard the agenda session live and responded. So I think that Alderman Long and I probably have heard maybe more than the rest of you, I don't know, from citizens in our specific ward who are requesting this study and requesting that we stop and look at this. So we know that the mayor and the chief and everybody visits up here all the time, and there's good communication going on. Let's take it outside of that and talk about it publicly.
And I will tell you this, we'll be glad to do that. I can tell you as the mayor of this city, and I think I can speak for the police chief, we'll take the police officers, we'll be glad to get them. But there's cost associated with everything, and I'm going to bring you those costs, and then we can arrange, cut, splice, dice, make a julienne fry out of it. But we'll look this over from one end to the other, all right?
Good.
Good.
If the council votes for it, thank you.
Yes, that's good. Yes.
I had a couple of questions. I don't have any problem with the request itself whatsoever. I'm always in favor of getting good information, but I had a couple of questions about the statistics you offered. Said we had a median crime rate, but that we had a lower number of officers per capita. I know that our population includes on-campus students at the university, and I was wondering if you included in your police officer count the members of the university's division?
That was information given to me by the chief of police, and it did not include students.
Oh, it didn't.
Very clear.
Come up, Chief, and talk to us about that.
No, the numbers that we provided, Alderman Long, and the number of officers per thousand does not include the officers at the university.
How many is the university
Or the
have?
students, correct?
The students are part of our population.
Yes, it does include the students are counted as part of our population. I'm not an expert on the census, but the ones that are counted as our population, it is included. I'm not sure how many the university have. I want to say it's like 32 or 33. Obviously,
I'll find out.
Obviously, you know that they're on campus only.
Yeah.
They have about 4,000 students that live on campus, and never how many other students obviously live off campus. Well, I guess I ought to clear that up a little bit. The university has, obviously, the university main campus. They have UAMS, the old hospital. They have Engineering South. They have, various other properties throughout the city. So they do cover anything that happens in those areas. Also, by state law, if I think I'm correct, Kit might be able to help me with this. If they're going from point A to point B, anywhere from like the campus to Engineering South, and they encounter something, they have jurisdiction to handle that in that situation.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Kit. I wanted to say one other thing. There was something said about frozen positions. I want to make sure you guys know that we did have 4 frozen positions in 08, 09. However, 2 years ago, we were able to get one of those back with a grant, and then just this year, we got 3 of those back with a grant. So we currently have no frozen police officer positions. We have some other civilian positions, but no frozen police officer.
No frozen police officer positions, right?
That's correct.
How long are those grants good for?
I think they're a 75-25 grant for 3 years, and then that 4th year, we have to put 100% of the bill.
And if I may.
Sure.
And if you could we talked about this a little bit, but if you could point out, just to the council, when the last time, the number of police officers, versus the crime rate, in Fayetteville and the crime mapping was done, was that 2006?
2007, I believe, is the last time that's when we come up with the 8-beat. And I guess while I'm up here, I guess I'll just talk about that a little bit. And I don't want you guys to think there's always 8 policemen out there working because we have an 8-beat. That's not the way it works. 8 is the minimum number that we have to have before we feel like we have to hire somebody for overtime. And I'm talking about officers in a car answering calls. It doesn't include motorcycle officers, doesn't include canines, doesn't include bike officers, doesn't include supervisors, and that kind of thing. So I went back the week before Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue because I didn't feel like the week of Bikes, Blues, Barbecue would be a fair analysis, and just got an average number of how many officers we had on a shift, and that was 10.4 was the average the week before Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. So even though we have to have a designated beat map because every address in the city has to be put in the computer, and that way the computer knows what officer to send. So what we do is we assign 8 people to those beats, and then like if we've got 10 working, then we would have what we call a rover that works the north half of the city and a rover that works the south half of the city. So I don't want you to just think because we've got an 8-beat map, that means we've got 8 officers out there working every night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
The second question I had was, you're intending this to be an internal study, not a third-party study, right?
Right.
Okay.
We got it.
And then my last question was, I noticed you included a map, I think it was just for illustrative purposes, of a 9-beat map. I was wondering how that was generated. Was that generated with the same methodology that the 8-beat map was generated with?
It was based on call volume, where we try to put an equal workload on each officer, and that's why you notice some of the areas are much bigger and other ones are much smaller. It's based on call load, and so it was the same methodology that was done in 07 when the 8-beat map was done.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And if I could, I just want to thank Chief Tabor and Deputy Chief Reynolds back there for their work helping me put some of this stuff together. Y'all are a tremendous asset to our city, and I appreciate you.
Okay. Do we have a motion in a second or something here? Or do you want to keep talking?
No, so moved.
I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean it that
Pass
way.
the resolution, Mayor.
Second.
Okay. Any public comment on this? All right, seeing none, bring it back to council. We got a motion in a second. Any final comments? Yes.
Well, I would just, you mentioned that you'd be bringing us information about our fire departments, because I'm really concerned that, we're looking at police, but we're not looking at fire, and they're the ones who haven't been raised up to market. are we going to be adequately addressing that?
I am going, I'll tell you this, my proposal next spring is to bring the firemen up to market. Fire and police each get a step, so everybody's caught up.
Thank you.
Well, you're thanking me now when you vote in on the spring and you see what all the costs are, let's, you know.
We're
But I'm
getting-
going to
we'll
recommend
bring-
that in the budget, and then we'll just see what occurs. All right. But that'll be next spring. All right, any other final comments? All right, Sandra, would you please call the roll?
Shopmire.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Long.
Yes.
Gray. Marsh.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Hetty.
Yes.
Tennant.
Yes.
Okay, any announcements?
Mayor, a couple of announcements. Of course, the first Fayetteville Half Marathon, called the Heroes Half Marathon, is Saturday, October the 18th. It's being sponsored by our IAF Fire Department. So encourage citizens who are interested in that to mark that date and participate. We also have our Ward cleanup. Ward 1 cleanup is October 18th at Shaver Foods parking lot and the recycling and trash collection facility. And then the last fall ward cleanup is November 1st. The locations are Woodland Junior High and the recycling, trash, and collection facility. And we also will have a lot of visitors this weekend for the University of Arkansas, Alabama football game here in the city of Fayetteville. It's at 5
Yes,
p.m.
well.
this Saturday.
Any other announcements? All righty then, we're adjourned.